You might not expect someone like me to non-ironically support the idea of electing Marianne Williamson as our leader. But it's what I want. It is what I believe is right for the people. And I want this on an emotional level equally as much as those who support Donald Trump. You will need much more than facts and reasoning to stop this phenomenon. And it is appropriate, because the only thing that can defeat a phenomenon is a stronger phenomenon of at least equal force. Give it a try. When was the last time that we elected divine feminine intelligence to be the leader of the wealthiest nation in the global economy? Marianne Williamson is not going to take your meds. She wants more science in the White House, not less of it. There are big money interests in suppressing Marianne. But Donald Trump's ability to defeat the most qualified candidate in history has taught us that voting is real. Elections are a collective self-fulfilling prophecy. Marianne Williamson will be President of the United States if you decide that she can be. You have that power. There are those around you who will tell you she's a joke. I like to remind them that George Carlin was one of the greatest philosophers of our time, and many of his greatest speeches were not exactly a joke, were they? The learning curve of big truth may be it may be an undue burden for the average American to catch up on all this in only a few months. But the average American knows when they hear her voice that something quite bigger than what we can see is going on. You deny the dark psychic force that is harnessed by the mass media manipulators like Donald Trump, who has been in media for 30 years. He is the master of psychic manipulation. You do not believe me, but the proof is in the way you react to him. You have the power to control the way you feel. Have you ever spoken to a person who truly believes Donald Trump is a good idea and is capable of rational discussion? These people are out there, and they're your neighbors. Your fears of Donald Trump are a big part of the problem. Whether you're on left or right, radicalization, we are all vulnerable to psychic attack. Psychic attack is not action at a distance. Your fear of the supernatural, your fear of superstitiousness is the root of what you're coming from when you reject Marianne. There's a lot that you have to learn about body language, emotional manipulation, emotional abuse, the way acquiescence works, the way social movements work, the controlling of emotion. I've worked in tech, specifically for music, in 20 years, dealing with musicians, the way they feel about overcoming the obstacles to fulfilling their own potential is the ultimate layer underneath what we normally think of as music making. The decisions that you choose to make when you listen to or play music or whatever, how you choose to feel about it is in your control. And you can learn to harness this, use it as a tool to control the emotions of others. for better or worse. This has practical applications, people. This is used in advertising. It's used in movies. I'm not going to include any music here, but we could put some dark, scary movie music. We could put some childish lullaby music during the sensitive parts, further amplifying your emotional response. The content of what Donald Trump talks about is not what's important. What's important is the way we react to it and the way we choose to let this affect us when we are moving forward. Whether you deny the effect that Donald Trump as a symbol, the effect that this has on the populace for it's bad for the left and for the right. There are some people in between, and there's some people who want nothing to do with that. Are you familiar with horseshoe theory? Horseshoe theory are people who know that centrism is a fake compromise, and they like to try to see where people are coming from on both sides. And once you check out the extremes on the other sides, and wow, once you get to big truth, you step back from the whole game and you see this whole other layer. And that's why spirituality is a sub-layer that exists underneath existentialism, underneath philosophy, underneath the psychology, underneath the values that we have, underneath the issues, the policies, the proposals, what we normally refer to as politics, and finally the layer of the reality TV show that you see before you, everything you think that you're supposed to know about this election. Underneath that, underneath politics is stupid. It's like pro wrestling. It's a reality TV show. But once you cut through that and get to the issues, a real conversation can be had. Then you get to the underlying values that most Americans actually share, the most common thing that separates the left and the right is how you handle taxes. They call Bernie Sanders a socialist. They're scared to death of that. Bernie Sanders is arguably unelectable. You look at the polls, you look at the data, you can try to argue otherwise. You're going to need a lot more than that if you want to beat Donald Trump. This is a game that's been going on for quite some time. Since the days of John F. Kennedy, the role of the presidency has been ceremonial in nature. Many who fear Marianne Williamson or Andrew Yang, they're afraid, we can't elect someone with no government experience. That didn't work out well last time. Well, you know what we haven't tried? We haven't tried electing someone without government experience who behaves ethically. Have you ever thought of that? Donald Trump he behaves in a way, he's a rebel rouser. You ever hear that term? That's something the elder folk used to say when I was a kid. He's a rebel rouser. It's a loaded word. I want you to look it up. I want you to look that up on Wikipedia. Rebel rouser. And this is what it's all about. Leveraging the collective hatred and fear. There are people who say that anybody who is pro-choice is a murderer. There's people who say anybody who is this. In order to connect with the underlying issues, with the person who perceives to be your opposer, you have the power to break this endless cycle. It is within you all along, and that is this ancient secret of the Illuminati. The power to repel psychic attack, the power to break this endless cycle is within you all along. And all you have to do is choose willingly to break the karmic cycle. And when I say Donald Trump is the master of emotional manipulation, You afraid of Russia? I bet you're afraid of Russia. We have concerns about the Russians. The Russian government and the American government have been messing with the citizens' heads for decades, over half a century. They say Putin plays five-dimensional chess. If Donald Trump wants you to think the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of what he's really doing, and he expects this, so he'll do the opposite of that, Putin expects all of that, does the opposite of that. People like Marianne and I, all available channels are open. 12-dimensional chess plus the source. If you're an atheist, you can call it your conscience. If you were raised religiously, you can call it the Holy Spirit. Science is not the appropriate tool for measuring and describing the way your experience of the way everything in this known universe in science comes into your experience of existence. Science cannot adequately describe that realm, and spirituality is the appropriate tool for this. Everything we think we know about psychology is like little kid stuff. It's just like a little layer. It's just a piece of it. All philosophy will eventually lead to the hard problem of exactly how does phenomena come into existence. There's the medical, scientific, observable, totally, like the neurochemical processes and the way the perception system and the change in the... I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to use terms to describe that too exactly, but science is great for that. I'm a technician, and I love science. In addition to that, I see that there's more layers going on that science does not yet have the linguistic structures to adequately describe or predict. Spirituality, the rhetoric can frighten those who are unaccustomed to it, but let me tell you, for centuries, the powers that be have been suppressing your ability to develop your psychic potential. I'm not talking about, like, moving stuff with your mind. That's how they do it. Through the media, they create these ridiculous fantasies to distract you from what you are truly capable of. And that brings us back to breaking karmic cycles. The secret of the Illuminati. Donald Trump, the most hated man in America, found love, embraced the politics of love to cultivate a connection with Putin when everyone thought none was possible. They're buds. Can you imagine how much worse our situation would be if Donald Trump treated Putin with the same disrespect he treats our undocumented citizens? You ever think about that? That's an example of how we can heal this country with love. All of our foreign diplomacy issues, all of our foreign conflicts can be resolved by choosing love instead of this endless cycle of you did something bad and I am morally justified in bringing you down. I tap into that a lot. Tulsi Gabbard represents me. I'm a non-interventionist, but when there are threats and they are a clear threat to the American people, you gotta hit them before they hit you. I have learned that the hard way. Okay, like I'm a former hippie. I'm a former goth kid. Believe me, I get it. I was a libertarian until 2014, when I've been stolen from so many times, I've been cheated on so many times, I've been abused by peers, and I've seen abuse. And I've seen how the corporations do this. I've seen how the government enables these corporations. I have spent time with the lower 40%. We are on a farm. But how do you manage it? Marianne can potentially break us out of that farm by inspiring those who, like her, have put in the work, years and years of developing our honesty with ourselves and being able to try to inspire others to choose love. I'm going to take it back to Star Wars yet again, okay? Like, fear is the path to the dark side. These dark psychic forces, the forces within all of us, the dark side is within you. The dark side is within all of us, and you have to have the power to manage it and choose the light. Even Master Yoda. Master Yoda, have you ever seen the Clone Wars cartoon? The Clone Wars cartoon, the computer animated one. Some of the episodes are for kids, but every other episode fills in a lot of the lore. And you're going to learn huge things that affect the whole story about Star Wars. And there's this one where these beings are putting Yoda through a series of tests, the Force wielders or something, and there's this point where Yoda has to fight his shadow. And the shadow claims to be his dark side. And he has to fight it, and he keeps resisting. He keeps saying, "No, there's no dark side in me." Don't let that happen. Don't deny your dark side. Because if you do, you're just going to make it stronger, and you're never going to overcome. In the end, once Yoda recognized that his perceived opponent was actually himself, he was then able to neutralize the dark psychic force and regain control over himself. That's what we got to do to you. That's what we got to do to America. When you're arguing about Bernie Sanders versus Elizabeth Warren, you got to start treating each other better. Look at the results. If you reach out and connect to the underlying values, a deeper conversation can be had, and coming from that, we might get closer to finding a solution. We already have all the solutions we need. We just got to commit to something. We got to agree on it. Voluntarism, so huge. Man, like, you can't force your perception of what you think is right on other people. No more. Look at where it's got us. It's happening right now. Whether you're right or left, all of us are in danger of being radicalized. And we need to take a step back and think about the way we are treating each other and the way we feel about these things. So, Marianne Williamson is one of the 6 candidates that I probably endorse for presidency of the United States of America. And who should we elect? Who should we vote for? That's a conversation that we have to have with America, because currently, looking at the numbers, if it was tonight, I would vote for Bernie Sanders. But Marianne Williamson and a few others, I really want to see them get in double digits. We are currently in an environment where the ideas and big truths that Marianne are speaking will be rejected by those who are still plugged in to the false reality that was cultivated for them, that they continually opt into through manufactured consent by, multi-mega corporations. I'm not your enemy, and you're not my enemy. And whether you support Kamala Harris fighting against a Tulsi supporter, whether you're a Trump supporter fighting everybody else, whether you're a Bernie supporter fighting everybody else, starts with you. If you believe in truth, and if you have truth on your side, you have nothing to fear. I have the spiritual capacity to overcome my own unconscious bias and look beyond what is right for me and look at what's right for America. For Marianne Williamson to be what's right for America, we have to start opening up these conversations and lead by example and begin to look at the way we're treating each other. And we have to de-radicalize, de-escalate, embrace reason. A return to reason, a return to ethics. Marianne Williamson is an expert at helping you work through the way you choose to feel about the way that you feel about the way you choose to feel about the way you feel. The best person to lead a cabinet, the best person to go on TV and break the horrifying news that we're going to engage in a military action. The role of the presidency is ceremonial in nature, and we're really picking a symbol, a person to go on TV and meet with foreign leaders and make a case to the rest of the world that we have evolved and changed. There's a lot we got to work on. I'm going to call my friend from New Zealand and say, "You're on, girlfriend."